Did you know there's a theory that if bees disappeared from the face of the earth, humans would only have 4 years left to live? Well, there's a movie based on this theory called The Happening, known as El Fin de los Tiempos in Spanish, directed by this legend, M. Night Shyamalan. Stay until the end of the video because here on Shorts, I'll summarize a movie that'll leave you thinking for days. In New York Central Park, two girls are chatting and one of them notices the other starts babbling and loses all common sense. And when she looks around, she sees that everyone is paralyzed and some are walking backwards. The girl also sees that some people are hurting themselves and even sees red liquid. A moment later, the girl's friend pulls a pin from her hair and stabs it into her neck. Then, in another scene at a New York building, a group of construction workers are telling jokes when suddenly another worker on the second floor falls and then another one right after. When one of the construction workers looks up and suddenly notices that every single person there thinks they're Superman, actually jumping off the second floor. Then we're introduced to Elliot. He's a science teacher at a high school in Philadelphia. He discusses honeybees and their disappearance with his students, mentioning the theory from the intro of this video. When news arrives about people taking their own lives en masse, it spreads. Classes at schools have been canceled, and he decides to leave the city by train with his wife, Alma. Then we see his friend and colleague, Julian, and his 8-year-old daughter named Jess. Right after they leave, in Rittenhouse Park, Philadelphia, people start taking their own lives because of the neurotoxin. The train they're on stops in a small town in western Pennsylvania. After the crew loses contact with everyone, Julian discovers that the events have affected Princeton, New Jersey, where his wife is. So he leaves Jess with Elliot while he goes to find his wife with some other people who will take him in a Jeep. He and the passengers fall victim to the strange calamity, and the driver speeds up to proceed with the group's suicide. Meanwhile, Elliot, Alma, and Jess leave with others, a botanist and his wife. The man explains his theory that plants are attacking people as a defense mechanism. Complex mechanisms develop, which often seem to appear spontaneously, such as the use of strategies like attracting predators to eliminate specific threats and fostering communication between different plant species. So, in short, it's because the bees disappeared 4 years ago. Then we see several cars meeting at the same crossroads, all fleeing from places affected by the mass suicide epidemic. A private first class, Oster, suggests moving away from populated areas to avoid being affected, as the effect has been occurring in smaller populations. The group of survivors splits into two, with Elliot, Alma, and Jess in a smaller group. Oster's group is caught by the event. Elliot and the others watch the other group as they take their own lives, one after another with a single gun. Elliot concludes that it's most likely caused by an airborne neurotoxin released by the surrounding plants. The larger the group of people, the higher the chance of triggering the defense mechanism. It causes the group to split into 3 smaller groups. Elliot, Alma, Jess, and 2 teenagers named Josh and Jared stay together after searching for other people and places to stay, with no food or shelter. They reach a stranger's house where the 2 young men are killed by the residents of the home. Everything is still happening on the same day. Elliot, Alma, and Jess, now alone, keep looking for a place to stay and find the house of a rather odd lady who has strange habits and a very peculiar home. She dies from the effects of the trees and the chemical that's in the air. And right after the odd lady's death, while Elliot, Alma, and Jess were taking shelter, they decide to accept their fate and go out to meet each other to die together. But they were very lucky that this whole event, since the movie started, ended right then at exactly 9:57. And 3 months later, it shows that everything has returned to normal in Philadelphia. Then, before the movie ends, they show us a scene where 2 young men are arguing about a party, until one of them notices the other starts talking repetitively, and everyone else has stopped. That's where the movie ends. The Happening presents an uncomfortable idea that nature, when feeling threatened by man, can react aggressively to defend itself. And although the story sounds fantastical, the message behind it is not. The movie isn't literally about killer plants. It's about consequences, about how human action, when it becomes destructive and systematic, ends up generating responses that we can't always predict or control. In that sense, The Happening isn't as simplistic as it seems. Shyamalan uses an apocalyptic scenario to talk about a real problem, the human being's disconnection from their natural environment. Not as a moralistic critique, but as a warning. If we keep pushing the ecosystem's limits, the reaction won't come as an explosion, but as a silent, gradual, and inevitable response. Also, there's an implicit critique of how modern society reacts to fear, with misinformation, collective panic, and an inability to reason when the danger has no clear face. In that sense, the movie also feels very current, and although it received mixed reviews, The Happening doesn't claim to be a perfect story. It's more of a narrative experiment with a clear message. The world doesn't belong to us, we coexist with it. And if we break that balance, it won't take a major catastrophe to finish us off. It will only take the planet deciding that we've been enough.